1993 had Hulk Hogan leaving, 1994 had the steroid trial, but despite both of those, the year 1995 is unquestionably the overall worst in company history, from sparsely attended tapings and house shows, to a roster loaded with groan-worthy gimmicks and less impressive talent, to the difficulty of rebuilding a foundation of public credibility. With a hint of desperation, WWF aggressively hawked the presence of two notable celebrities for their Supercard Mania 11, former NFL All-Pro linebacker Lawrence Taylor as an opponent for Bam Bam Bigelow, and Baywatch seductress Pamela Anderson as the intended valet of Shawn Michaels. After WrestleMania 10, we were owed a bad one, and for WWF, WrestleMania 11 was fairly disastrous. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 fascinating facts about WrestleMania 11. Number 10, Vince McMahon scheduled an early morning meeting with a twist. The night before WrestleMania 11, a memo made the rounds to the entire WWF entourage. McMahon was instructing his trooper performers to all be at the Hartford Civic Center first thing Sunday morning for an urgent meeting of unspecified purpose. Naturally, this threw a wrench into any plans the wrestlers might have had on a Sunday night, plans involving drinking and illegal trespassing and having full sex with the dolphins at Hartford Aquarium looking at you, Shawn. Sure enough, come Sunday, a horde of groggy talents packed into the Civic Center, but instead of McMahon, it was JJ Dillon who met them and wished them all the best of luck for that night. And that was it. McMahon had no intention of showing up. He called the meeting to keep his talents in line. Vince McMahon, you son of a bitch. Number 9, the ring was missing an apron skirt. If you watched the ESPN documentary on the XFL, you may recall the story about technical difficulties as a result of someone forgetting to fill the generator with gasoline. This gaffe isn't as bad, but it's still pretty Bush League. Owing to a balls up on the day of the show, the company only had 3 WrestleMania 11 ring apron banners. Whoopsie poopsy. To hide the embarrassing blunder, the apron opposite the hard camera was fitted with the era standard blue skirt adorned with WWF logos. It's only visible at the point where Shawn Michaels leads Jenny McCarthy around ringside before his world title match, and it's a safe bet that someone got a Vinnie Mac tongue lashing over that. Number 8, Jim Neidhart was the original choice to win the tag belts with Owen Hart. Owen Hart was finally due to win his first piece of WWF gold at Mania 11. As he had been teaming with his brother-in-law Jim the Anvil Neidhart for months in the war with brother Bret, the former New Foundation seemed like a good choice to unseat the smoking guns. Unfortunately for Neidhart, it wasn't to be. In early January, the Anvil was let go for missing a handful of live events, leaving Owen twisting in the wind without a partner. Ultimately, the King of Hearts would team with a returning Yokozuna to capture the belts, but there was one more possible partner in the mix. A certain someone was considered to be brought in to team with Owen, though he wouldn't actually make an impact in WWF for some time. Number 7, Chris Benoit was considered as Owen's partner. In Vince's hot ring of toxic boxing, talent was in short supply during 1995, and that's putting it mildly. Look at the King of the Ring winner. What are you doing, Mabel? By this time, the crippler Chris Benoit was in the midst of an ECW Tag Team Championship reign with Dean Malenko and had developed an international following based on his unyielding work ethic. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reported in mid-March 1995 that Benoit was under consideration to show up as Owen's mystery partner. There was a connection after all both men had trained in the infamous Hart Dungeon. However, the idea never came to fruition, although Benoit did work several non-televised matches for the company in June of that year, managed by Ted DiBiase. Number 6, Bret Hart called his match with Bob Backlund his worst pay-per-view one ever. In the summer of 1994, Hart and Backlund had themselves an enjoyable TV match for the WWF Championship, a clash of two eras that spurred Backlund's heel turn. Their towel match at Survivor Series 1994 for the belt was a nice blend of old-school wrestling and nerve-wracking family drama. Then their I Quit match at WrestleMania 11, meant to blow off the long-time feud, was the drizzling shits. The two simply exchanged submission holds while guest referee Roddy Piper manically screamed, "What do you say?" into the microphone. Hart wrote about the match in his 2007 autobiography, "This was, without a doubt, my worst pay-per-view match ever." Just you wait till WrestleMania 26, mate. Number 5, McMahon insisted that Diesel kick out of Michael's Superkick. When McMahon tried to repurpose Diesel's Hulkamania version 2, aka Diesel Power, it just didn't work. He was the Roman Reigns of his day. Fans didn't think he was the guy, but Vince had a stone-cold rager for him. When directing Diesel and Michaels before their World Championship bout, McMahon wanted his champion to look strong, tall, muscly, beautiful, delicious, flexible, and coquettish. To achieve this, Diesel was to kick out at 1 from Michael's Superkick. Both Clicksters argued against it, fearing it would turn the crowd against Nash, who realized himself that he was being pushed way too hard against fan sentiment. But McMahon insisted, and Diesel kicked out right as the ref's hand hit for 2. The fans booed, and Michaels would later state that McMahon himself admitted it was a bad call. Number 4, Diesel claims Michaels took the jackknife wrong on purpose. It wasn't any surprise that Diesel won the match over Michaels at WrestleMania. It was designed to give intended long-term champ Diesel a landmark win, and Nash's best buddy old pal Shawn was just the man to get into such heights. Well, maybe, despite the low point of McMahon's order backfiring, the body of the match went well, except for the finish, which was arse hammers. Michaels took Diesel's jackknife powerbomb but performed the bump in a weird way, nearly landing on his feet before quickly flopping to finish the landing, lessening the impact of the move. Nash would later claim that Michaels did this blatantly as a means of lobbying for Nash's top spot in the company, that the subterfuge was done to make Nash look foolish and inferior, but Kevin also conceded that he doesn't hold a grudge against Michaels for doing so, because the environment was one that rewarded cutthroat behavior and they were best pals. Remember? Best pals. Number 3, Bam Bam Bigelow received $250,000 for putting Lawrence Taylor over. There are people who scoff at Bam Bam Bigelow for doing the honors for the 36-year-old ex-linebacker that never worked a wrestling day in his life, but let's not forget our good pals at WCW who put the world title on David Arquette and gave Jay Leno a pinfall victory over Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan. Madness. Delicious madness. Another reason not to thumb one's nose at Bigelow is his payout, which totaled $250,000. For that kind of money, hell, I would fillet R-Truth in public for 12 minutes for that kind of scratch. I'd do it twice. F it. Bigelow earned every cent of that money, salvaging the main event of the biggest show of the year by carrying a total novice to a credible, hard-hitting match, and doing so with nary a blemish. Number 2, Taylor could barely stand or speak after the match. Make no mistake, professional wrestling is a tough business. It takes a certain type of conditioning to even make it through a respectable match, and the greatest linebacker of the 1980s found that out firsthand. After polishing Bigelow off with a diving forearm smash, Taylor needed to be physically propped up by his entourage of NFLers, including future horseman Steve Mongo McMichael, and physically carried to Salt and Pepper's staging area for the concluding celebration. That is a weird sentence to say. Both Roddy Piper and Jim Cornette remember Taylor being completely blown up by the experience, propped up against a wall and barely able to utter a word from sheer exhaustion. And number 1, the Clique gained its 5th member that night. As Shawn Michaels remembers it, he and Nash were sitting together backstage at the Civic Center when a 25-year-old ex-WCW talent approached them. His name was Paul Levesque, and he was told by veteran wrestler Terry Taylor that Michaels and chums were precisely the people to know. At the time, Levesque was finishing up a non-compete period with World Championship Wrestling, which he had quit near the end of January. He certainly didn't have anywhere near the pull of a Shawn Michaels or a Kevin Nash in the spring of 1995, but things have a funny way of working themselves out. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.